My name is Jessica, and I want to tell you about the day my own sister tried to steal my children, and how I destroyed her life in return. This is a story about betrayal so deep it nearly broke me, and revenge so sweet it saved my family. For years ago, I was a single mother of two incredible children, Emma, who was 8, and little Jake, who was 5. Their father had walked out on us when Jake was barely 2 years old, leaving me with nothing but a mountain of debt, and 2 babies who did not understand why Daddy was not coming home anymore. Those early years were brutal. I worked as a nurse during the day and cleaned offices at night, surviving on 3 hours of sleep and endless cups of coffee just to keep our tiny apartment and put food on the table. But despite the struggles, we were happy. Emma was brilliant and kind, always helping with her little brother, and excelling in school despite our circumstances. Jake was pure sunshine, a giggling, energetic little boy who could make anyone smile even on their worst day. We had game nights with dollar store board games, movie nights with homemade popcorn, and bedtime stories that I made up because we could not afford many books. We were poor in money but rich in love, and I thought that was enough. My sister Rachel lived a completely different life. She was married to a successful lawyer named David, lived in a beautiful suburban home, and had everything money could buy. Everything except the one thing she wanted most: children. Rachel and David had been trying to have a baby for over 6 years, going through multiple rounds of expensive fertility treatments that left them emotionally and financially drained. Each failed attempt made Rachel more bitter, more desperate, and more obsessed with having the perfect family she felt she deserved. Despite our different circumstances, Rachel and I had always been close. She was 3 years older than me and had helped raise me after our parents died in a car accident when I was 16. When Emma and Jake came along, Rachel seemed genuinely happy to be their aunt. She spoiled them with expensive gifts I could never afford, took them on special outings, and frequently offered to babysit when I had to work extra shifts. Looking back now, I realize the signs were there much earlier than I recognized them. Rachel would make subtle comments about how tired I looked, how difficult it must be to raise children alone, how much better the kids behaved when they were at her house. She would buy Emma and Jake clothes and toys, then make pointed observations about how much they seemed to prefer the nicer things she could provide. At the time, I thought she was just being generous and maybe a little thoughtless about our financial differences. The first real warning sign came about 8 months before everything exploded. I had picked up Emma and Jake after they spent the weekend at Rachel's house, and Jake was unusually quiet during the drive home. When we got to our apartment, he climbed into my lap and asked in his sweet little voice, "Mommy, why does Aunt Rachel say you do not take good care of us?" My blood went cold. "What do you mean, sweetheart? What exactly did Aunt Rachel say?" Jake looked confused and a little scared. "She said maybe we would be happier living with her and Uncle David because they have a big house and lots of money and you are always working. She said maybe you do not have time to love us properly." I held my son close and assured him that I loved him and Emma more than anything in the world, that I worked hard because I wanted to take care of them, and that our little family was perfect just as it was. But inside, I was furious. How dare Rachel plant those seeds of doubt in my children's minds? How dare she make them question whether they were loved and wanted? I called Rachel that evening, trying to keep my voice calm and reasonable. "Rachel, I need to talk to you about something Jake said. He mentioned that you told him he and Emma might be happier living with you. I am sure there was some kind of misunderstanding, but I need to know what actually happened." Rachel's response was smooth and dismissive. "Oh, Jessica, you know how children can misinterpret things. I might have mentioned that if you ever needed help, David and I would be happy to have them stay with us for a while. You work so hard, and you look so exhausted all the time. I just want what is best for everyone." Her tone was so reasonable, so caring, that I almost believed I was overreacting. Almost. But something in my gut told me this was bigger than a misunderstanding. Still, I wanted to believe the best of my sister, the woman who had been my rock for so many years. The incidents escalated slowly, but steadily over the following months. Emma came home from Rachel's house asking why we lived in such a small apartment when Aunt Rachel had told her that children needed their own bedrooms to be happy. Jake started asking for organic food like Aunt Rachel served, saying she had told him that the food I bought at the discount grocery store was not healthy for growing children. Then Rachel started showing up at Emma's school events and Jake's daycare, introducing herself as their aunt, and making comments to other parents and teachers about how hard it must be for me to manage everything as a single mother. She volunteered to be an emergency contact for both children, and somehow convinced their teachers that this was something I had requested. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in March. I had just finished a particularly brutal 12-hour shift at the hospital, and was driving to pick up the kids from Rachel's house. I was exhausted, running on empty, and looking forward to nothing more than getting home and cuddling with my babies while we watched a movie together. But when I arrived at Rachel's house, she met me at the door with an expression I had never seen before, cold, determined, and somehow triumphant. "Jessica, we need to talk before you take the children home," she said, blocking the doorway so I could not enter. "What is wrong? Where are Emma and Jake?" I asked, trying to peer past her into the house. "They are fine. They are upstairs playing. But I have been thinking a lot about their situation, and I believe it is time we had an honest conversation about what is best for them." Something in her tone made my stomach drop. "What are you talking about, Rachel?" She stepped outside and closed the door behind her, forcing me to stay on the porch. "Jessica, I love you, but I think we both know that you are struggling to provide the kind of life these children deserve. You are working yourself to death, they barely see you, and they are growing up in poverty when they could have so much more." "My children are not living in poverty," I said, my voice rising. "We may not have a lot of money, but they are loved and cared for and happy. Now let me get my kids so we can go home." Rachel shook her head. "I cannot let you do that, Jessica. Not anymore. David and I have been discussing this for months, and we have decided that Emma and Jake would be better off living with us permanently. We can provide them with stability, education, opportunities, everything you want to give them but cannot afford." I stared at my sister in complete shock. "Are you out of your mind? You cannot just decide to take my children. They are my children, Rachel. Mine. But are you really the best person to raise them?" Rachel asked, her voice taking on that reasonable, concerned tone that I was beginning to hate. "Think about it objectively, Jessica. You work 70 hours a week just to afford a tiny apartment in a bad neighborhood. The kids are in daycare and after-school programs more than they are with you. Emma is already showing signs of anxiety from the instability, and Jake is acting out because he needs more attention than you can give him." "That is not true," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I felt a stab of doubt. Emma had been having trouble sleeping lately, and Jake had gotten in trouble at daycare a few times for pushing other children. Was Rachel right? Was I failing my children? "I have already spoken to a family lawyer," Rachel continued, watching my face carefully. "He says that given the circumstances, your financial struggles, your work schedule, the children's behavioral issues, a court would likely agree that the children would be better served in a more stable environment." "You talked to a lawyer about taking my children?" I whispered, the full horror of the situation finally hitting me. "I talked to a lawyer about protecting my niece and nephew," Rachel corrected. "Jessica, this does not have to be adversarial. We can work together to make this transition as smooth as possible for Emma and Jake. They love you, and you can still be part of their lives. But they need stability, and David and I can provide that in ways you cannot." I felt like I was drowning. My own sister was trying to steal my children, and she was making it sound like she was doing me a favor. "No," I said firmly. "Absolutely not. Emma and Jake are my children, and they are coming home with me right now." Rachel's expression hardened. "I was hoping we could handle this amicably, but if you are going to be unreasonable, then I will have to pursue legal channels to protect those children. I have been documenting their living conditions, your work schedule, and their emotional state for months. I have witnesses who can testify about your parenting, and I have the resources to fight this battle properly." "You have been documenting my parenting?" The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. All those months of generous babysitting, all those concerned comments, all those offers to help, she had been building a case against me. "I am going to get my children now," I said, pushing past her toward the door. But Rachel grabbed my arm. "Actually, you are not. I called Child Protective Services this afternoon. They are sending someone to interview the children tonight, and until they complete their investigation, Emma and Jake will be staying here where they are safe." The world tilted around me. You called CPS on me? Your own sister? I called them because I love those children and I cannot stand by and watch them suffer anymore, Rachel said. But there was something in her eyes that looked more like satisfaction than love. As if on cue, a CPS worker arrived at the house. Rachel had clearly been expecting her, and the woman seemed to already have a complete file on our family. She was professional but distant as she explained that allegations had been made about my fitness as a parent, and that a full investigation would need to be completed before the children could return home with me. I was allowed to see Emma and Jake briefly to explain that they would be staying with Aunt Rachel for a few more days while some grown-up things got sorted out. Both children were confused and upset, and Emma kept asking if she had done something wrong. Jake clung to me and cried when I had to leave without them. The drive home to my empty apartment was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I sat in my car in the parking lot and called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years because I literally could not stop crying long enough to function. The next morning, I used what little savings I had to hire a family lawyer of my own. What he told me made my blood run cold. Rachel had not been exaggerating about her documentation. She had photos of our apartment that she had taken without my knowledge, highlighting every cramped corner and worn piece of furniture. She had testimony from Emma's teacher about her recent anxiety, from Jake's daycare provider about his behavioral issues, and from neighbors about how often the children were left with babysitters while I worked. More damaging still, she had financial records showing exactly how much I earned versus how much our basic expenses cost, making it clear that we were living paycheck to paycheck with no savings for emergencies. She had medical records showing that I had missed some of the children's routine appointments due to work conflicts, and school records showing that Emma had been late to class multiple times when my shifts ran long. Individually, none of these things proved I was an unfit mother. But together, they painted a picture of a struggling single parent who might not be able to provide the stability and resources her children needed. And Rachel had the perfect counter-narrative: a stable, wealthy couple who desperately wanted children and could provide everything Emma and Jake deserved. The good news, my lawyer told me, is that it is very difficult to permanently remove children from a loving parent without evidence of abuse or severe neglect. The bad news is that your sister clearly has significant resources and has been planning this for a long time. This is going to be expensive, lengthy, and emotionally brutal. Over the next 2 weeks, while my children remained with Rachel and David, I was subjected to a level of scrutiny that felt like having my entire life dissected under a microscope. Social workers interviewed me repeatedly, toured my apartment, spoke to my employers, and questioned everyone who knew our family. The most heartbreaking part was my limited visits with Emma and Jake. I could see them twice a week for 2 hours each time, always supervised by a social worker. The children were confused and increasingly anxious. Emma kept asking when they could come home, and Jake started having nightmares and wetting the bed. Rachel, meanwhile, was playing the role of the concerned aunt perfectly. She expressed worry about my stress levels, suggested that maybe I needed time to get my life together, and hinted that perhaps a longer-term arrangement might be best for everyone. She had Emma enrolled in piano lessons and Jake in a toddler soccer league, constantly emphasizing all the opportunities she could provide that I could not afford. But it was during one of my supervised visits that I noticed something that changed everything. Jake was playing with a tablet that I had never seen before, an expensive model that Rachel had apparently bought for him. As he played, I noticed he was using a password to unlock it, which seemed odd for a 5-year-old. "Jake, sweetie, how do you know that password?" I asked casually. "Aunt Rachel taught it to me," he said without looking up from his game. "She said I needed to remember it so I could show people how smart I am." Something about that struck me as strange. Why would Rachel care about Jake demonstrating his ability to remember a password? But the social worker was there, and I did not want to make a scene, so I filed the information away and continued with our visit. That night, I could not stop thinking about the tablet and the password. The more I thought about it, the more it bothered me. I knew Rachel well enough to know that she never did anything without a reason, and teaching a 5-year-old a complex password seemed pointless unless there was something specific she wanted him to be able to access. The next day, I did something I had never done before. I hired a private investigator. I know it sounds dramatic, But I was desperate. My children had been taken from me based on what felt like a carefully orchestrated campaign, and I needed to know if there was more to Rachel's story than what appeared on the surface. What the investigator found changed everything. Rachel and David were not the stable, wealthy couple they appeared to be. Their beautiful home was mortgaged to the hilt, and they were behind on payments. David's law practice was failing, and they had massive debts from their fertility treatments. They were facing bankruptcy and potential foreclosure within the next 6 months. But more shocking than their financial problems was what the investigator discovered about their fertility struggles. Rachel had not just been unable to get pregnant. She had been lying about trying. Medical records showed that she had never actually undergone fertility treatments. Instead, she had been taking birth control consistently for the past 3 years while telling everyone, including David, that they were trying to conceive. The woman who was trying to take my children because she could not have her own had been deliberately preventing herself from getting pregnant, while building a false narrative about struggling with infertility. But the most damning discovery was yet to come. The investigator traced the password that Jake had memorized and discovered that it was the access code for a cloud storage account containing hundreds of photos and videos of my children. Rachel had been documenting Emma and Jake obsessively for months, creating what looked almost like a shrine to them in digital form. But these were not normal family photos. These were intimate moments. The children sleeping, bathing, playing in their underwear, crying when they thought no one was watching. Rachel had been secretly photographing and recording my children in ways that felt invasive and deeply disturbing. Armed with this information, I went back to my lawyer, and together we presented our findings to the court. The response was swift and decisive. An emergency hearing was called, and within 24 hours, Emma and Jake were returned to my custody while Rachel and David were placed under investigation for fraud, child endangerment, and potential exploitation. But my revenge was just beginning. You see, during those 2 weeks when my children were taken from me, I learned something important about myself. I learned that there was literally nothing I would not do to protect my babies, and nothing I would not destroy to keep them safe. I made sure that everyone in Rachel's social circle knew exactly what she had done. Her church, her neighborhood association, her book club, her gym. Everyone got a detailed account of how she had tried to steal children from her own sister based on lies and manipulation. I contacted David's employer and the State Bar Association to report his involvement in what appeared to be a fraudulent custody scheme. I made sure that every fertility clinic in the area knew about Rachel's deception, preventing her from trying this manipulative approach with other desperate couples. Most importantly, I worked with prosecutors to build a case against Rachel for child endangerment, fraud, and harassment. The photos and videos she had taken of my children without permission were enough to pursue criminal charges. The final blow came when I revealed Rachel's financial situation to our entire extended family. The relatives who had been questioning my fitness as a mother suddenly understood that Rachel's offer to provide stability was built on a foundation of lies and debt. Rachel and David lost their house, their reputation, and their marriage. David filed for divorce when he learned about Rachel's birth control deception, and her carefully constructed life fell apart piece by piece. But the sweetest revenge of all was watching my children heal and thrive once they were safely home with me. Emma's anxiety disappeared, Jake stopped having nightmares, and our little family became stronger than ever. Rachel tried to reach out several times over the following months, claiming she had only wanted what was best for the children, that she had loved them and thought she could provide better for them. But I blocked every attempt at contact. She had forfeited any right to be part of our lives the moment she decided to try to steal my babies. Today, 2 years later, Emma is excelling in school, Jake is the happiest kindergartner you have ever seen, and I have been promoted to charge nurse at the hospital. We moved to a bigger apartment in a better neighborhood, and while we are still not wealthy, we are secure and happy. I learned that sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones we trust completely. I learned that a mother's love can become a fierce and terrible weapon when her children are threatened. And I learned that the sweetest revenge is not just destroying those who try to destroy you. It is building a better life that proves they were wrong about you all along. Rachel lost everything she valued: her marriage, her home, her reputation, and any chance of having the family she claimed to want so desperately. But more than that, She lost the respect and love of the sister who had once trusted her with the most precious things in her life. That is the price of betraying family. That is the cost of trying to steal someone's children. And that is why you should never underestimate a mother protecting her cubs. If this story of family betrayal and ultimate justice left you breathless and craving more, then you absolutely need to subscribe to Revenge Janet right now. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we upload new revenge stories that will shock, satisfy, and leave you cheering for justice every single week. From family drama that will make your blood boil to workplace revenge that will make you applaud, we bring you the most intense, emotional, and satisfying revenge tales on the internet. Join our community of justice seekers who believe that karma always finds its way, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply exposing the truth. Do not miss out on stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat and restore your faith in justice. Subscribe now and become part of the Revenge Janet family, where betrayal meets its match and karma always wins.